All right, I'm back. So you probably just watched Elvis and Lucy, uh, a letter from Lucy, and some proof on John Wayne. Uh, I loaded a version that I really didn't edit very good, so apologize for that. I think I shut the camera off once irritatedly to restart something, and uh, and then I think the very beginning scene. I was just kind of getting it set up, and I didn't edit that part out. Normally I do a pretty good job at editing it. And here I am. I'm not going to edit this out. We're just going to go natural, right? Al natural. Um, Thank you to you subscribers. I read your comments all the time. Thank you to those that are going to Elvis and the Legends. You can see them in the description of the videos, the link to that. That's my sister channel where I sing a lot of Elvis tributes. And also there's other videos on there that I do of Elvis that I can't really put on this channel due to copyrighted content. We are reading The Faith of Elvis. Real quick before I get started on this and talk about a recent experience and read this book, I'm going to shout somebody out that I just saw. I saw super thanks come through from Kate Kleinstuber. Now, hopefully I'm pronouncing your last name right. Kate Kleinstuber, 7652. Appreciate the $10 super thanks. I think it's maybe Canadian $10. It might be from Canada. So yeah, so giving you a heart and a like, and I appreciate that. Let's talk about the Faith of Elvis, and let's talk about Billy Stanley. I had a great conversation last night with Billy. I didn't think it was I thought it was just gonna be kind of a touch base talk for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. But we ended up just kind of chatting for, gosh, 45 minutes, maybe 50 minutes. And he's agreed to come on and do a series while we read his book and perhaps his other book too. We talked about a lot of stuff. I don't want to kind of spoil what we talked about. I can tell you that he seems to be a very sincere guy. Now, the only experience I have of Billy Stanley is through reading stuff here and there about him and his brothers and about his mom, Dee. And then the reading of this book so far, The Faith of Elvis. And we're on chapter 5, and it reads beautifully. Billy really paints a great portrait of Elvis. That's a very real portrait, but at the same time, it's focusing on Elvis's spiritual side and what a great older brother and role model that Elvis was for Billy. Obviously, Elvis made an impact on Billy because, he became a New York Times best-selling author. Not many people in the entire world can claim that. And so, first off, Billy had some reservations at first due to some of the other stuff that we're reading, like the Are You Lonesome Tonight, Elvis and Lucy series. But he watched a lot of videos. He watched some of the Priscilla videos. He watched the videos I've been doing on his book. And it was really nice that, when he would talk last night, he said, hey, I watched your stuff, and he really, I think he feels comfortable to come on here and to tell a story and to talk about this book. And I want to give him the opportunity to. There's a lot of stuff that's out there. I even see in the comments lately that, don't talk to Billy, don't give him a chance, sort of a thing. But what I do know is that we all have family. I can't be responsible for what my brother or my mother or my aunt or my uncle or my cousin have said. And I think that he wants to set the record straight on some of these things that he says are kind of untruths, and then some stuff that he knows are truths that are out there. That once again, he kind of has some guilt by association. So that being said, I hope we can have an open mind while we're watching his videos, because he was around Elvis from 1960 really to 77. Billy was around Elvis, and if anybody's going to know Billy, know Elvis, Billy's going to be one of the people in this world that are left that truly knew who Elvis was. And I think that's very important, that we give him a voice and we give him a platform and we give him the patience and we give him the benefit of the doubt. So that's my take on it. Chapter 6, I'll be home for Christmas. Growing up at Graceland, I always looked forward to Christmas. The Presley family went all out to decorate, gather friends and family, and create holiday memories. But even with Elvis's fame and access to anything you wanted, the focus wasn't just on decorations and gifts. He also made sure that we learned about the real meaning of Christmas, the gift of Jesus, and the hope that we all have in him. There's a reason it's called the good news. It's news that will change your life. But some people have still never heard it. That was the case with my brothers and me. Now, we weren't familiar with the Christmas story when we moved to Graceland. We had never been active in a church, and I thought Christmas was all about getting toys. But as soon as we began our first holiday season, Elvis started teaching us the meaning of Christmas. He would take us aside and say, boys, it's not about the presents. It's about Jesus' birthday. Let's not forget what this day represents. Now, as we would come to discover, as we got older, we had plenty of reasons to be grateful, since the holiday season at Graceland kicked off with Thanksgiving. If Elvis was home, a typical Thanksgiving day began with family and friends arriving at Graceland around noon. We would all be dressed up while the smell of turkey, ham, green beans, mashed potatoes, and pumpkin pie filled the house. The guys would usually go to the den and watch a little bit of the parade, then football on TV. In reality, we didn't watch much because we would all be joking around. The conversation always ended up with how good the food smelled. By 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., we would all be sitting at the dinner table. After we all sat down, Elvis would ask everyone to tell what they were thankful for. They would start on his left and go around the table, ending with Elvis telling us what he was thankful for. He always said, I'm thankful for my family, my friends, and my fans. After that, he would ask my mom to say a prayer. Then we would eat. The conversation was always light and funny, and sometimes I thought Elvis and Vernon were competing on who could tell the most amusing stories. They would have everyone laughing as we would enjoy the meal. So they would have everyone laughing as we enjoyed the meal. After eating, everyone would thank Elvis for having them there at Graceland. And he would say, you made it special for all of us just by being here. Someone would mention that Christmas was right around the corner, and that's when we would start making plans and looking forward to putting up the tree. Decorating the tree. That was an event for family and friends at Graceland. One of the people who loved decorating the most was Priscilla. Gosh, I really want to say bobblehead, because that's what I say in the other books. But this is Billy's book. I'm just going to say Priscilla Boyu. Her father was in the Air Force, and Elvis had met her while stationed in Germany. He liked her immediately, and she moved to Memphis in 1963 to be closer to Elvis. They married in 1967. A week or two before Christmas, Vernon would buy a real tree. The next day, we would all get together to help put it up. We would have dinner first and gather to place it in a stand that slowly rotated the tree as Christmas music played. The tree always stood in the dining room. Heck, I didn't have that when I was a kid in the 80s and 90s. You kidding me? A rotating Christmas tree in 1960 or 61 or 62 or 63? That must have been nice, Billy. Had to be magical. The tree always stood in the dining room. After that, we would hang lights on the tree. When these were in place, well, we would turn the stand to get a better view and adjust it if needed. Then we would hang the ornaments. Everyone would be joking and laughing as we worked. Then came the tinsel. Now, Priscilla liked to place it on the tree a couple strands at a time. However, Elvis liked to throw handfuls of it at a time as he walked around the tree. It was hilarious listening to Priscilla say, "You're doing it wrong. It's supposed to be placed a few strands at a time." And Elvis would reply, "No, you got it wrong," as everyone laughed. My brothers and I always followed Elvis's lead and just threw tinsel everywhere. Priscilla would come up behind us and try to remove what we'd done, but she always gave up. After we had finished with the tree, Elvis would place the star on the very top. Then we would plug in the tree, stand back, and admire what we'd done. It was such a beautiful sight to see the lights come on and hear the music. You could feel the love in the room as we looked at one another and smiled. But something strange always seemed to happen later that night. When we saw the tree the next day, a lot of the tinsel would have disappeared. With a hint of mischief in his eyes, Elvis would say, "I guess a tinsel fairy came last night and removed some of it." Elvis loved to have fun and was like a big kid during Christmas. Shopping was no exception. When I was a little older, I was invited to help. Now, he would have a store opened up after hours, and we would all get into our cars and follow him there. Once we were inside, Elvis would walk down each aisle and pick out something for everyone. And he would hold up something and ask, what do you think she would think of this? Or, do you think he would like that? Elvis personally picked his present himself. If he held up a shirt, Elvis personally picked every present himself. If he held up a shirt or a jacket, he would say, this would look good on so-and-so. Then he might change his mind, smile, and jokingly say, no, I think I'll get this for myself. His Christmas shopping sprees were all about showing love and generosity, not just to his family, but to his friends. Of course, those who helped him shop for gifts never knew what we were receiving because he would shop for those gifts separately. After a few hours of shopping, he would have the gifts wrapped, and we would load them into the cars. Back at Graceland, Elvis would arrange the presents under the tree. Now, we always had a formal affair on Christmas Eve. It started around 5 p.m. when all the family, friends, and employees would arrive. As soon as you walked in the door, of course, you could smell the food cooking in the kitchen. The scents of turkey, ham, mashed potatoes, cornbread dressing, pumpkin pie, and much more filled the air. Hey, Billy, I think Billy remembers, one of the biggest things he remembers about Graceland was the food. I have to ask him about that.
Yes, I got the message.
Well, that's my son in the background going to pick up pizzas. My wife and I going to a holiday party tonight for my company. That was Tucker making an appearance. That's his name. Okay, let's keep going here. The maids who worked full-time at Graceland worked extra hard to prepare a feast like no other for Elvis and his friends and family. See, there were appetizers laid out on the table for everyone to enjoy. Vernon particularly liked rum balls. He always seemed to get happier after eating a few. There was also live music with a man walking around playing accordion as drinks were served. Everyone would stand around talking and joking with each other, sharing funny things that happened during the year. About 30 minutes after everyone had arrived, Elvis would make his entrance. I always thought he looked so cool, walking down the front stairway, smiling at everyone. Now, if y'all been to Graceland, you can picture this, right? Elvis walking down those stairs. Now, of course, I think they were white back then, or they were light blue, one of those two colors. And maybe Billy can tell us that when we get on here, because we're going to talk about, we'll probably be at chapter 7 or 8 by the time we do our video next week. I think we're going to probably talk on Tuesday or Wednesday, and then the video will be up the following day. But obviously, it was read for a while with Linda. When Linda Thompson was there, and Billy talked to me about Linda a little while and about Anita Wood. I wish we would have actually been recording at that point in time, but that's okay. We'll talk about it again. We just had a good conversation, and I really, really enjoyed it. Actually, going back a little bit, I'm actually enjoying reading some positive stuff about Vernon. So prior to this book, the only other place that I saw anything positive about Vernon was in the Are You Lonesome Tonight book that I read, that I just finished reading. And Lucy talks about calling and talking to Vernon in the office and how Vernon was always very concerned about Elvis and very kind and very nice. Everything else I read about him gave me the impression, just more of a negative impression. And I think I've shared some of my halfway negative thoughts in some videos prior. So I'm glad to see that this is the second book in a row. That's kind of putting some more positive light on Vernon. All right, let's get back in the book here. All right, so after about 30 minutes, everyone had arrived. Elvis would make his entrance. I thought he always looked so cool walking down that front stairway, smiling at everybody there. When he got to the main floor, he would walk up to every person, hug them, and thank them for being there. After an hour or so, dinner would be served. Elvis led us in prayer, and then, as Billy likes so much to talk about food, we would dig in. Billy must like that food, making me want to eat some food. The conversation at the table was light and funny. When we were young, sometimes Elvis would ask me and my brothers, have y'all been good this year? Of course, we always said yes. Then he would say, Santa told me you were. See, me and him are pretty tight, Everyone would laugh at that. After dinner, we would open presents. The tradition never changed. First, Elvis would hand out his gifts to everyone. It was fun watching him dig for presents under the tree because there were so many of them. His greatest joy was watching everyone open their gifts from him. Makes me think, must be where I get the holiday cheer from every year. And of course, it becomes almost too much. And we always say every year, my wife and I, we're going to do less this Christmas. And then it turns out to be more. I'm going to have to find some pictures and share the craziness that our Christmases are and have been. It takes 4.5, 5 hours to get through Christmas on Christmas morning. And I know that seems just too much, but I think, we lost a child. That's part of it, You always want to give more and more to the children you have. But even before then, when I was younger, and we lived in an apartment. I remember that the year we lived in an apartment, we had the regular Christmas tree, one by the front door, one by the kitchen, another one by the entrance to the hallway where the kids' bedrooms were, and then there was one over by the kitchen window that was a sitting room. We had like 5 or 6 Christmas trees, and I guess I didn't have much growing up for Christmas. If I got a jacket or a pair of shoes, which I normally didn't get that, but I remember a jacket. That's all I remember for Christmas. I know I got other presents. I had to have gotten some because my brothers would make sure I was taken care of, my older brothers. But there'd always be a train around the bottom of the tree. It was the same dang train every single year. But I didn't have much, and I think that's part of when you don't have as much you want to give, and that's Elvis. Elvis didn't get much when he was younger. Now, he appreciated what he had. I remember the story about him having the tricycle, and that it would disappear. And Gladys or Vernon were like, where's it at? He goes, oh, I gave it to so-and-so. He gave to people. And Christmas, this is a very nice, and again, we got to thank Billy for sharing this story, because this is a wonderful representation of Elvis, After dinner, we would open presents. The tradition never changed. First, Elvis would hand out his gifts to everyone. It was fun watching him dig for presents under the tree because there were so many of them. His greatest joy was watching everyone open their gifts from him. Now, one time, Elvis wanted to play a little joke on everyone. He handed out envelopes, and everyone looked at each other, wondering what it could be, then opened them at the same time. The surprised look on their faces was hilarious. Elvis had given everyone McDonald's gift cards. It didn't seem to go over too well, so that was the last time he did it. Now, as I got older, I began to watch Elvis a little more closely when he handed out gifts. The look on his face was priceless, and I could tell and I could see the love that he had for everyone. It was so strong that you could feel it. Elvis was happiest during these times because he was a giver, not a taker. Watching Elvis tear into his presents was like watching a child. Sometimes he would look up and see how everyone was watching him, and then he would try to act a little more grown up. But after a few minutes, he would go right back to acting like a kid again. After all the gifts were opened, we would show off what we had received, and Elvis in particular made you think that your gift to him was the greatest thing that he had ever received. That's what made me think that the paragraph before about Elvis tearing into the presents like a child. I believe, and I don't know, we'll have to ask Billy, but he pretty much confirmed it there. I think he did that to really, 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 really make people think and feel like he was excited. And maybe he was, because people were giving him something. And he's a man who could get anything he wanted, whenever he wanted. Money wasn't an issue at all. But I think maybe he put on a little bit of show for everybody, so they felt good. That's a giver. Elvis was a giver. And I think Billy actually said that back there, but I'm almost thinking that needs to be a name of a series. Not just here in this book, but I talk about all the time about all the generous things Elvis did. All the money he gave away, the cars he gave away, the wheelchairs, helping Gary Pepper, all that stuff. He was a giver. And this is one of my favorite chapters. I think they've been all been my favorite chapters so far. So let's keep let's continue. I think we got a page or two to go. As the celebration wound down, we would congratulate each other on our gifts. And Elvis would say, it's been a great year, but I know next year will be even better. Then we would end the day basking in the loving spirit of Christmas with family and friends. We had a lot of fun with gifts, but Christmas with Elvis was never focused on just material things. It was about gifts. The gift of friends, the gift of family, and the gift of faith. How we need to hear that. I can't tell you how I need to hear that, how we need to hear that. You know, it's been a crazy, crazy, crazy world the last 8 years, 12 years, whatever. Politically, all that stuff that goes on. Friends and families torn apart with politics and all that stuff. And the focus on, COVID, people being locked away, shut in New York City, all these places, people, family members passing away, how the government handled it or how the healthcare system handled it, all the arguing and fighting over that. But what gets lost in all of this stuff is there. What we've lost in society a lot lately. About the gifts of friends, the gift of family, and the gift of faith. I really should end right there, but we get another page and a half to read, but I appreciated that, reading that. My brothers and I shared an inside joke over the years. The only difference between Christmas and any other day with Elvis was that we had a tree for Christmas. I'll never forget the way Elvis made other people feel. Feel like he truly appreciated them. However, Elvis's love for people at Christmas went far beyond his family. Oftentimes, he would help strangers who were in need. One night, we were sitting around Graceland about a week before Christmas, and Sonny West, one of Elvis's bodyguards, came and told him about a lady who had just lost everything she had in a fire. This deeply moved Elvis, who immediately said, "I'll help her." It was a little late that night, so my brothers and I had to go home. I wasn't there when Elvis went into action, but the next day, we were there. When Elvis gave Sonny instructions on what to say if the lady asked who had done this, Elvis said, "Tell her Santa Claus did it." I never asked Elvis what he did for the lady, and didn't find out until 1988. I met the lady, and I'd seen her at Graceland a couple times in the 60s. She was a friend of Sonny's. When we met, we had a talk, and she told me what Elvis had done for her and for her children. She said Elvis had a store opened up, and he bought clothes, furniture, and toys for her and her children. The next day, he had someone rent an apartment and then had everything delivered there. Then he had Sonny pick her up and take her to her new apartment. She and her children were overjoyed and couldn't believe what they saw. Before Sonny left, she said, "Tell Elvis I said thank you." He smiled, said, "Santa Claus did this, not Elvis." Her eyes filled with tears, and she gave Sonny a hug. She said, "Tell them Santa Claus said tell Santa Claus I said thank you, and tell Elvis thank you also." They both laughed. Some of Elvis's acts of love during the holidays were more public. Now, every year, Elvis enjoyed riding around Memphis and looking at the Christmas lights. One year, he got an idea of riding around on motorcycles to look at the lights and do some Christmas caroling. We all put on our warmest clothes and rode around Memphis, stopping at various houses to sing a Christmas carol or two. We didn't know any of the people when we stopped, but it was great to see the looks on their faces when they saw it was Elvis leading the choir. The Memphis press heard about it and dubbed us L's Angels. Christmas was so special to Elvis, not just because of the fun or the presents, but for what it represents. He often talked about the birthday of Jesus, and when I was growing up, he would tell me, "Just think, Billy, Jesus was born with nothing. His family was worse than poor, but look at what we became." Sometimes a tear would come to his eye when he talked about that special day. I remember one time when he said, "I so much want to be just like Jesus." I said, "You are, Elvis. You bring happiness, love, and joy to people's lives. You love to give those to those in need." He smiled, gave me a hug, and thanked me for what I'd said. Now Titus 3 through 5 says, "But when the kindness and love of God, our Savior, appeared, he saved us, not because of his righteous things that we had done, but because of his mercy." Kindness, love, and mercy. The best gift anyone could ever receive is also the gift God gave us when Jesus was born. Because of his death and his birth and his resurrection, we have hope. Thank you, Elvis, for introducing me to the greatest gift of all. Well, that was chapter 6. You know, and it's funny, I realized I'd seen some of these stories before. And of course I'd seen them from Billy's page. He every Christmas, and I think I've followed Billy for the last couple of years. You don't always get to just see everything on Facebook. Facebook just has to show you what it wants to show you. You know what I'm saying? And I don't go looking after certain people's pages and stuff. So at some point in time, Billy's page came up as suggested, and I followed it. And he always shares these wonderful Christmas stories. I think he shared one the other day that I liked. And, you know, while I'm reading, I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember hearing that. But the source of it, obviously, is from Billy. So let me know what you think about the faith of Elvis. I did show Billy your comments the other day and said, hey, you know, folks are looking forward to you coming on the channel here and doing some shows. And I think, you know, I think that that perhaps helped sway them to want to do it. But I think the biggest thing that Billy really wants to do is set the record straight. He doesn't want to get negative about Elvis. I've seen that for the last, I don't know how long, ever since I've seen it. You know, he wants to set the record straight about everything, about the negativity that's out there. So, and he really wants to get the story about how Elvis truly was and who Elvis was. And I want to give him an opportunity to do that, and I hope that y'all will too, and that you'll start watching the videos, that you'll share them around, and that you'll ask questions in the comments. And so the following week, we'll go through those questions, you know, some of the comments, and he can explain some of this stuff, and it'll be coming from him, not some rag magazine, not some other book that sources him or tells a story about him. It'll be coming from the man himself. And I think that we all owe everybody that sort of if Lucy was here, she would be on the channel if she wanted to. And she probably wouldn't want to be because she's, you know, but regardless. Same thing with Desiree. I've talked to Desiree. We had a couple-hour conversation the other night. She may come on the channel, but at least she's talked to me, given me a lot of answers of questions that we had, and said, hey, you can share this. There's a couple things she shared with me from her own personal life that she asked me not to share because she just shared some stuff with me that was that had nothing to do with Elvis and even with her mom. So that being said, I'm going to hold that close in confidence. I might do a little broad story of something because there's something that was very interesting that happened prior to my conversation with Desiree that I have to tell, but it's not going to divulge any secrets, and not secrets about Elvis, but stuff that she asked me to kind of keep to myself, because I just think it's very important for that discussion. That's going to happen tomorrow. So tune in tomorrow for that, the conversation I had with Desiree. Continue to tune in, find the playlist, The Faith of Elvis, and catch up. If you haven't read chapters 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, do that. You can find Billy's book anywhere on Amazon. There's no specific place you got to buy it at, but I know it's on Amazon. So if you want to buy it, I think it's a wonderful book to have, to read, because this tells true stories of Elvis, and it's wonderful stories. These are wonderful, wonderful stories that we're reading from somebody that was there. And that was somebody that was deeply affected by Elvis, the spiritual Elvis. All right, TCB TLC, till next time, this is Rare Elvis Photos. Find me on my sister channel as well if you're curious about some of the singing I do. Of course, I'm a singer-songwriter as well. It's not just these Elvis tributes that I do. But, you know, since I'm specifically on this channel talking about the other channel, most of that stuff is other videos on Elvis and me singing Elvis songs. So, and if not, no worries, okay? We'll see you around. TCB.